Hello and welcome to this training video for the new enhancements that we have had implemented into SLEIS beginning with reporting year 2024. I'm Grant Loney and I will be taking you through the list of changes and then we'll go over into SLEIS and see how they look within the application. Let's get started. There are two new reports for you on the bulk processes page that will give you information about all the facilities that belong to your company. The facility status is now visible on the facility reports page. This is an easier, more user-friendly method of determining the facility status or viewing the facility status for all of your facilities. Some data fields were moved from the additional information tab to the facility tab, and there is new interconnected QA between those fields. The status year will now clear when the status changes. Any process that reports a speciated VOC, such as benzene, or a speciated PM, such as PM 2.5, or cobalt or another metal, will also have to report the pollutant VOC or PM 10 respectively. All equipment must be connected to a process unless that equipment is set to permanently shut down. Template files, particularly those downloaded from the single facility, have additional fields within them that will help you more easily identify which facility they came from and will align with the other method of obtaining those files through the batch processes. There are two new user agreements that you must agree to when submitting your facilities, and these agreements will aid us in terminating permits for facilities that are permanently shut down. And there's now an edit history for user records. There is one additional fairly large enhancement, and it is the ability to clone data within SLEIS. But however, we're not going to discuss that in this video. That'll be discussed in its own separate video. Okay, let's go over to SLEIS so we can see what these look like within the application now. When you come to SLEIS, when you first log in, you'll enter a screen that looks very similar to this with a list of all your facilities that you have access to right here. You'll notice there are two buttons here. One is to open and go to that list of facilities, and the other one is to go to the batch processes. We're going to go here first, to the batch processes. And then we'll go ahead and update our reporting year to 2023. And here are where these two new company reports are. You have the facility summary, which has information about the facility, the operating status, the permit number, API numbers associated with that facility, and it looks a little bit like this. We have our status, permit numbers, API numbers, all on this report here. And then there's the emissions summary by facility, which has each facility on its own row and the pollutants associated with those facilities in a unique column. So here we have CO in one column, our NOx emissions all in another column, and each facility along its own row. And you'll notice that this value for the pollutant sums all of the emissions of that pollutant together for that facility and displays it in a single field. Couple of things to point out with these. These reports are not affected by the selection buttons. These selection buttons right here refer to the action that is displayed right here. These reports will have the data for all of the facilities listed here, regardless of what, if anything, was selected in this column right here. Additionally, the data, in particularly this one, is populated when you save the data into those reports in SLEIS. So what this means is that you can use these reports for your own review, for your own QA and QC before submitting these reports over to DEQ. You don't have to wait until after you submit to look at these reports. Okay, so let's go back to my companies, and then we'll get into one of our facilities in particular. We're going to be focusing on this number 3 here today. And you'll notice right here, we can now see the operating status of the facility for each of our years here. Didn't used to be here, but nowadays it's much easier for you to see and determine the facility status of your various facilities. We're going to be working in reporting year 2024 today. And first thing we're going to look at are those fields that were moved from the additional information tab to the facility tab. So I'll click the edit button so we can see what's going on here. So the fields that we're really looking at are the API number, the facility category. These ones got moved and they now have associated interconnected QA with the NAICS code. So what does this mean? First, it means that if you have a NAICS code that's within the oil and gas sector, you cannot use not applicable as your facility category. Additionally, when not applicable is the facility category, you cannot have an API or US well number. So let's try and save this record and see what happens. You get two errors, again, saying you can't use not applicable if you're having oil and gas NAICS code, and you can't provide an API number if it's not applicable category. Additionally, if we have a well site, this will require an API number. So let's try and save without it. And it says you have to have an API number if it's a well site. Also, because we're in Oklahoma, all of our API numbers should start with 35. So if we try to input a number that's say 25 with 8 trailing digits, we will get a slightly different validation error saying we have to have a 35 at the beginning of this number with 8 trailing digits. Let's change it back to that, and it saves now. Okay, so let's look at the status and status year. And we see here, it tells us that changing the status will clear the year. Let's just show it to you. So 2024 is our operating status, or our status year. If I change to temporarily shut down, that clears it. Put that back in, change to permanently shut down. Once again, it's cleared. For the moment here, I want to make that operating so that we can look at a few other things in here. Let's look at a process emissions record so we can see the next thing. Okay, this is a record that's already passed validation because it has everything it needs in it, but I'm going to remove a couple things just so you can see what I'm trying to show you. I'm going to remove the PM10, remove the VOC, and let's try and save it. And it says, nope. When you use PM 2.5, you must also include PM10, and if you're including any speciated VOC, you must also include the pollutant VOC. If you get this error, it should be pretty easy to fix generally. I'll just use my VOC pollutant, select a calculation method, select an emission factor. Then we'll do the same thing with PM10. We'll click add, PM, select a calculation method and emission factor, and then save it. And it should be good because you should now have all of the required pollutants. PM10 when you have another PM, VOC when you have a speciated VOC, and it saves just like we wanted it to. There is now a validation check that ensures that all equipment that is not permanently shut down is connected to a unit process. So let's look. This is a new release point, and let's take a look at it. So we can see right here, related unit processes is blank. So this is currently not connected to a related unit process. Let's run our validation on this report just to see what happens. And it says errors are encountered. And we need to look at we need to open our validation report to see what the errors were. You can download it, open it up. And the error report tells us that our release point needs to be connected to a unit process unless it's permanently shut down. And it even tells us which release point we're talking about here. is 223,510. So if we go back over here to our release points, we can see 223,510, the one we looked at earlier. And so there are a few ways of fixing this validation error. If you need this release point, then you need to go ahead and connect it to a unit process. And you do that on the unit processes page when you select the release point apportionment. If you do not need this release point, then there's a couple other ways of getting rid of it. If this is a brand new piece of equipment that has never been submitted to DEQ before and does not need to be submitted to us, then you can just click the delete button right here. Now, if this piece of equipment has ever been submitted before on any report in the past, this delete button is not available. And you'll have to set your operating status to permanently shut down with an appropriate operating year or status year to get rid of that validation error. Let's run validation one more time. And we can see no errors were encountered this time. As mentioned earlier, there's a couple different ways of acquiring the template files to get data into SLEIS. One of the methods is right here, just by downloading the templates. And this is for the single facility, single report. This is the set of templates that have had additional fields added to them. It's things like facility name, company name, just things that'll help you more quickly and easily determine which template files belong to which facility. The addition of these fields aligns this set of templates with the set that you would acquire from the batch processes screen where we were working earlier. All right, to show you the next thing, to show you our new agreements when you have a permanently shut down facility, I'm going to go ahead and update this facility to permanently shut down with the status year of 2024. And then we'll go to initiate our submission. When we click this button, it'll first run validation. If we have any validation errors, it'll tell us about it. If not, it'll go to this, and I'll have to view my electronic document, and then I can continue forward to the next screen. Now, four of these are the same four, these top four that you've seen every other year in SLEIS. It's these bottom two that are new. And by agreeing to these agreements, you are agreeing that any facility listed below is indeed permanently shut down, had no emissions, and that you wish to have the permit canceled. If you don't want to cancel your permit, you can go back and update the facility status to temporarily shut down and reassess in the future as needed. Okay. I think the last thing we're going to look at is the modify records on the user profile. So if I click my profile up here, it takes me to my user profile. And then you can see right here the view history. And we're going to click the HTML to see what this looks like. And here we can see that on this date, a change was made to our user profile. A couple of things to point out here. This feature was implemented in early December 2024, and it is a point forward change log, meaning only changes that happened after early December 2024 will be captured and displayed by this change log. The other important thing to point out is what does it mean when we say it shows elements of the user profile? Well, that's essentially going to be everything on this page right here. Your name, title, organization, addresses, contact information, things like that are what's displayed in this report here. Notably, what is not displayed on this report are changes to your roles. So if you go from an editor to an administrator at a certain company, that is not going to be captured here because user roles at companies and facilities are not elements of your user profile. And so those are not captured by this report. Okay, well, once again, thank you for tuning in today. Hope this was helpful for you. In case you don't have these already, here's a couple of helpful links for you. Slice is available right here at this link. And all of our training videos, including the one that you're watching right now, are posted to our website right there. Once again, I'm Grant Loney. Thanks for tuning in today. Have a great day.